Ding-a-ling.
Good morning and welcome. Welcome to the home of Calgary Unitarians, both physical and virtual, wherever you are on your journey of faith or your search for meaning. We are so glad to have you with us. We start by asking everyone to turn your sound off on your devices. In worship mode. Place your cell phones in worship mode. We begin by acknowledging the land that we gather on. And for all of you out there in Zoom land, please take a moment to think about the people whose land you live on. Here in Calgary, Mohkinstsis, we're on Treaty 7 land. And we're here as the guests of the Blackfoot Confederacy, the Siksika, the Piikani, and the Kainai First Nations, and also the Tsuut'ina people and the Stoney Nakoda, who are the Wesley, the Chiniki, and the Bear's Paw. I'm trying to do it without looking. First Nations. And also, Calgary is home to Alberta, Métis Nation of Alberta, Region 3. We're grateful to be here. We're grateful for the land that sustains us. And we acknowledge that we are co-stewards of the land, and that's because of Treaty 7 that was signed on September 22nd, 1877, and that makes us all treaty people. My name's Pam Rickey. I'm on the board of directors, and this place is really fun for me this weekend because on Friday night, Kathy Welburn, our poet laureate, led us in the most fun poetry night ever on Friday. Yay. And if you missed it, come for the next one. It's not just sitting listening to poetry. We have a couple of announcements this afternoon at 2 o'clock. We do one of our 8th principle activities in Widening the Circle, and Reverend Shelley will say more about that. But please be here. We're holding ourselves accountable. That's on Zoom, 2 o'clock. And also, we have 3 weeks of a book sale. Reverend Deborah Falk left us a whole lot of books, and also the library team has been weeding out our library. So please come. Everything is very reasonably priced. The next 3 Sundays. Bring cash.
And now, this is the time when we get to greet our neighbors. So if you're able, rise in body and spirit. We're going to turn around and wave at the camera. Good morning, everybody on Zoom. We love you. We miss you. We hope to see you soon in person. We're glad you're here. And greet your neighbors around you with a namaste or a wave or a comfortable hello. How do you do? Good to see everyone here today. The coffee is brewing, the cookies are waiting. It's starting to feel like home again, isn't it? And thank you to Mariana Louise for these gorgeous Gerber daisies. Is that what they are? She sprouted these little buddies, and look at how they're doing. Wow. Thank you, flower friends. I love the flowers this time of year. Thank you. And we do have a tradition here that we'd like to restart of if you have someone you'd like to honor or a special occasion you want to acknowledge, you may say, I'm going to host the flowers on Sunday. So we're starting to have our signups again for ushering, for welcoming, for helping with cleanup. We're going to put in the flower signups again. So if there's something special you want to acknowledge or you just feel like sharing some flowers with us, we'll have a sign up for that soon. And Lynn Nugent has been spearheading all of this signing upness, and she's doing a great job. And we're gonna all learn how to do sign up genius on the internet, and it's very exciting. But I love having fresh flowers up here. It just makes it so cheerful and reminds us of the interconnected web. So you can be thinking ahead about when a good Sunday for you to bring flowers might be. Now then, we light our chalice, the symbol of our liberal religious tradition, with the words of Reverend Gretchen Haley. Our theme this month is awakening. Awakening, I love that. Wake up and stay woke, right? Open the door to your hesitant heart. Let the light shine on all the sleeping shadows. Awaken to this day that offers itself to you and to all with great extravagance, like those flowers. Awaken to this gift, this beauty, this chance that we might still begin again and anew, that we might be changed by the in and out of breath, that we might still burst forth like the crocuses, that we might still surprise this earth with a new song, sung together, calling us all in, and then sending us back out, and know it all as a blessing. Come, let us worship together. Good morning. I'm the Reverend Shelley Thompson. My pronouns are she and her, and I am the interim minister here at Calgary Unitarians, much to my delight. Today is Palm Sunday in the Christian Church. It is the end of the beginning of Holy Week, as the story tells us of Jesus making his pilgrimage back to Jerusalem. It's called Palm Sunday because as he rode into town on his donkey, all of his friends and followers lined his path for him with the palm fronds from the trees that are indigenous to that part of the world. And in many Christian traditions, and especially the Catholic Church, you'll see palm fronds decorating the chancel and being a part of the ritual on this Palm Sunday. And then it is those palms that are burned to create the ashes, the renewal, the rebirth, the cycle of regeneration, that those ashes will then be used as the sacrament for blessing Ash Wednesday and the beginning of Lent. So it's very much tied to the rites of spring in the pagan calendar and all of our earth-centered traditions in that way. They very pointedly put Easter in the springtime. So today is Palm Sunday. And then Good Friday will be on this coming Friday, as it is said that was the day that Jesus was crucified. So that is a day of observance for many Christians. And then next Sunday, we will be talking a little bit about Easter. Friday is also Passover for our Jewish siblings. the time when their covenant with their God saved them from a crazy king who wanted to kill all the poor little boys in the community, and they were spared through their covenant with their Lord, Yahweh. So we honor and celebrate with them this time of Passover. And for our Muslim siblings, Ramadan is continuing all throughout the month of April, and Eid al-Fitr is a 3-day festival at the conclusion of Ramadan, and it's expected to start on May 1st. The Islamic calendar is a lunar calendar, and their important dates start on the day after a new moon. So when the very first little crescent moon, it has to be observed, it has to be seen. And if they go out on that morning and they don't see it, they need to fast one more day before they can start their feasting. So very soon, they will be looking forward to the conclusion of Ramadan and the feast of Eid. It is a good time and place to be together, my dear ones. Please rise in body or spirit and join me in singing, We Are.
For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of the ages. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of. We are mothers of courage and fathers of time. We are daughters of dust and the sons of great visions. We're sisters of mercy and brothers of love. We are lovers of life and the builders of nations. We're seekers of truth and keepers of faith. We are makers of peace and the wisdom of ages. We are our grandmother's prayers, and we are our grandfather's dreamings. We are the breath of our ancestors. We are the Spirit of God. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are. For each child that's born, a morning star rises and sings to the universe who we are.
Back, we were doing some experiments this morning. Here, I'm too bright of a light. Here, they can see me better on Zoom. So I'm a little bit further back this morning. But good morning, everyone, on this blustery spring day here in Calgary. As you know, I'm Sheila McMaster, Director of Religious Education here at the Calgary Unitarians. And someone this morning was saying to me, she says, I just like seeing you. You bring me joy. And I said, that's my job, is to feel, is to just spread joy. So I'm so glad that some of you are catching the joy that I'm throwing. So thank you. And this coming Friday, speaking of joy, I am hosting a movie night that everyone is welcome to come out to. So it's this Friday, just in Wickenden here at the church, and we're having an Easter movie by Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit. So it's not your typical Easter movie, so I bet some of you have not seen it, and it's very worthwhile. And we'll also have our Looney snack bar, so I'll have like drinks and popcorn and chocolate bars and things, and so you'll want to come out for that. And this coming Sunday, as Reverend Shelley was mentioning, is Easter, and I always have we celebrate both Easter and Ostera with the kids, and I'm going to have an Easter egg hunt, but we're also doing a hunt for things that the kids can give away to the Humane Society. So that might be cans of pet food, it might be old towels that you have, and so bring stuff on Sunday that you'd like to donate. Just put them in the food bank box that we have in the Baker Hall there, and I'll collect them, and then we'll spread them out for the kids to find, and then we'll donate them to all the little pets in need that are out there. So it's kind of like they get their chocolate eggs, but they're also doing something nice for all the cats and dogs out there that need something special for Easter as well. And today, as you know, we're talking about diversity and identity. And as Reverend Shelley will tell you, that can mean a lot of different things. So it might be how much money we have or don't have. It might be how many parents we have. Some of us might come from single-family homes, or we might have blended homes where we have step-parents or 2 dads or 3 moms or any kind of combination. Or you might identify as neurodiverse and be on the autism spectrum, or you might have English as your second language, or know 3 languages. So many different things that are part of our identity that at first glance aren't necessarily visible. And I'm really happy to say that in our Children Youth Program, we actually have a lot of kids that are neurodiverse and on the autism spectrum. We have a lot of kids that are trans or non-binary, and that we make this a welcoming place. And it has been a very welcoming place for many of those kids to express and just be who they are. And so I want to say thank you to all of you too for being part of that. That when the kids come here, they do feel truly welcome to be themselves. And today we have a story called Marisol McDonald Doesn't Match by Monica Brown. Slide, please. And as we watch this story, or as I tell this story, think about what are some of the things that you love about yourself that might not match. Because as you'll find out in the story, it's only when we embrace all the things about ourselves that might not match that we're free to really be happy. All right, Marisol McDonald doesn't match. Next slide, please. And one more slide, please. There we go. My name is Marisol McDonald, and I don't match. At least, that's what everybody tells me. I play soccer with my cousin Tato, and he says, Marisol, your skin's brown like mine, but your hair's the color of carrots. You don't match. Actually, my hair's the color of fire, I say, as I kick the ball over Tato's head and into the goal. My brother says, Marisol, those pants don't match that shirt. They clash. But I love green polka dots and purple stripes. I think they go great together, don't you? I also love peanut butter and jelly burritos, and speaking Spanish and English, and sometimes both. Can I have a puppy, a furry sweet perrito? I ask my parents, por favor. Quizás, Mama says. Maybe, Dad says, smiling and winking. My teacher, Ms. Apple, doesn't like the way I sign my name. Marisol McDonald, she says, this doesn't match. At school, we learn to print and use cursive, but not at the same time. At recess, Ollie and Emma want to play pirates, and Noah wants to play soccer. How about soccer playing pirates? I suggest. No way, they say, so I run off and play in the swings by myself. After recess, we have art, my favorite subject. I think my drawings surprise my friends. And at lunch, Ollie walks over to me and he scrunches his nose. "A peanut butter and jelly burrito," he asks. I know, I say, "It doesn't match, but it sure tastes good." "Marisol, you couldn't match if you wanted to," Ollie says. "Oh yeah? I bet I can." And the next day, I wake up and decide today Marisol McDonald will match. And it's a little hard to find clothes all the same color. I play pirates with Ollie at recess, but it's not very fun. Why can't pirates play soccer anyway? I have regular peanut butter and jelly filled sandwich at lunch, and the bread tastes mushy. And even art class is a little boring. "Marisol," Ms. Apple says, "what's wrong? This doesn't look like your usual work." "I'm trying to match," I say with a frown. "Why?" asks Ms. Apple. I can't think of a single good reason. At the end of the day, Ms. Apple hands me a note and I open it and it says, "Marisol, I want you to know that I like you just the way you are, because the Marisol McDonald that I know is creative, unique, bilingual, Peruvian, Scottish, American soccer playing artist, and simply marvelous. Ms. Jamiko Apple, I skip all the way home." When I wake up on Saturday, I put on my pink shirt and my polka dot skirt and my favorite hat, the one my abuelita gives me from Peru. And at breakfast, I say, "My name is Marisol McDonald, and I don't match because I don't want to." "Bravo," says Mammy. "Good for you," says Dad. "Now, let's go to the pound and get a puppy." And when we get to the pound, there are big dogs and there are little dogs. And there are dogs with long noses and dogs with smushed faces. And there are chocolate-colored puppies and smoke gray puppies and puppies the color of caramel. How will I ever choose? But then I see him. He has one floppy ear and one pointy ear and one blue eye and one brown eye, and he is beautiful. And I walk over and he leaps into my lap. And I cuddle him and it sounds like purrs. "And I think we found just the right dog for you, Marisol," Mammy says. And my puppy is perfect. He's mismatched and simply marvelous, just like me. And I think I will name him Kitty. There we go. And I think one of the best things that we can do, for the people in our life and for ourselves is just to know that we are perfect just as we are, mismatched in every way. And now please join me as we sing "Me" downstairs. And I'm hoping I did have a couple children say they're going to go straight down because they're running a little late today. But yes, please join me as we sing "Me Down."
Go now in peace, go now in peace. May the love of God surround you everywhere, everywhere you may go.
Good morning. Now's the time to be present to the joys and concerns we hold in our own hearts, in our faith community, and in the wider world. We light our candle of joy this morning for all those good things in our lives, the small pleasures, the things that make us smile. And let's take time to feel gratitude for those things. I must say, I agree with Pam. I felt gratitude for our poetry event Friday evening. I am not a poet, but what a pleasure it was to hear those poets, some of whom I did not know were poets in our congregation. It was a great experience. So thank you to Kathy, AKA Cassie, for organizing this. It was a great evening. We light our candle for sorrows, for worries, for concerns, and for those things that weigh heavy on our hearts. May we find our burdens a little lighter by being in community. And you will think that Reverend Shelley and I were collaborating because my global candle is honoring the many sacred celebrations that are happening this month, but we never even consulted on this, so there you go, great minds, right? So in addition to the Christian and Jewish and Muslim celebrations that Shelley mentioned, I also want to raise up that for some of the world's Buddhist traditions, the historical Buddha's birthday is honored on April 8th. For Hindus, today is the birthday of Rama, a beloved incarnation of the god Vishnu. And as Shelley mentioned, today's Palm Sunday, and Passover begins at sunset on Friday. So may we hold each other's traditions with respect, and may we bring this respect into peaceful relationships among ourselves, in our communities, and it has long been my dearest hope that that would extend worldwide. May it be so. So now is the time to light your own personal candle or drop a pebble into the water. And then after, we will join in singing, I Am Sending You Light.
Sending you light to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you light to hold you in love. I am sending you light to heal you, to hold you. I am sending sending you light to I'll go just like you need to go. There is no need to worry. I am sending you light to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you light to hold you in love. I am sending you light to heal you, to hold you. I am sending you a light to hold you in love.
So, yes, we are all so much more than the sum of our parts. We are a dynamic synthesis of all of our circumstances, our life experiences, our self-awareness of who we are. All of these and so much more influence how we identify ourselves. Our relative cultural positions, our values, attitudes, beliefs, biases, and assumptions affect how each individual perceives themselves, how we perceive others, and then how others perceive us. It's complicated, right? Something to note is that whenever there are two or more people, the number of relationships present is always the square of the number of people. Think about that in connection with the word 7 billion. That's a lot of relationships going on here on planet Earth, right? So the way that works is I have a relationship with me, I have a relationship with you, that's my relationship to you, you have a relationship to you, and you have a relationship to me. 4. So if you happen to have 2 parents and 2 kids, there are 16 relationships in that house. It's a lot. This is why we invented family therapy. Right? So just bear that in mind, that dynamic, as we think about all of this stuff today. All of our perceptions and identities are with us everywhere we go all the time. So when we're talking about our 8th principle, looking at how does our society teach us to treat people, is that the same or is that different, hopefully different, than the way we actually want to treat people, right? Those things don't always match our values and the way the world around us has conditioned us to behave. So we think about identity and diversity and inclusion. We're thinking about 3 things. We're thinking about a within, an among, and a beyond aspect of what it means to be a Unitarian Universalist. Within ourselves, who am I as a person? What are my values? How do I choose to be in the world? How do I see myself and others? Among us, as a faith community, how do we treat one another? How do we live into our covenants and share our values and beliefs and support one another in all of these hard things? And then beyond us, out into the wider world, how do we interact with our greater society? How are we impacting the world around us with our mission? And we hope those are in good ways. And so you can kind of see that yes, we are, they're really false distinctions. It's all one great big thing. We're all a part of humanity. We're all a part of this journey together. But it can help us to think of that within, among, and beyond, almost like the 3-legged stool that we can sit on to keep us grounded in the fact that whether we're having coffee hour or worship, or whether we're having a small group ministry, if we're having a wonderful poetry night, or we're participating with Calgary Alliance, all of these things are with us all of the time. So when we start to talk about widening the circle and looking at social justice and how it works with all of these different elements, it's really important to notice that social justice isn't just something some people do over there. We're actually talking about each and every one of us living our lives every day and every interaction we have with every person we meet. It's an all the time, everywhere kind of a thing. It's the water we swim in. So that's what we're looking at when we're talking about changing, transforming ourselves and transforming the culture of our institution. It's an all the time, everywhere kind of a thing. So it's not just something that we do on special occasions or those who are privileged enough to have Tuesday off so they can go talk to the city council, things like that. It really is all the time, everywhere. And that is our 8th principle work, or our widening the circle work. It's our Unitarian Universalism work. It's our privilege and our responsibility as people of great faith to make a difference in the world. It's all about right relationships. And if we want to be a welcoming, inclusive, kind, compassionate, equitable people, then we actually are discovering in this new modern reality different ways of perceiving ourselves and our culture. So we're building our skills, we're building up our abilities, and we're building up all of our awareness and our spiritual practices. We're gaining covenanting skills. I like to think of covenant as a verb. We're covenanting together. And that is, in fact, our shared process theology. Even though we all may have individual personal theologies, the process of choosing to be in right relationship with one another, choosing to learn, choosing to grow within, among, and beyond, that's our shared process theology. It's dynamic, it's living, it's a holistic model that we use together that really serves us well. And it's a way of helping us transcend those differences that can sometimes trip us up and make those barriers to full inclusion that we talk about in our 8th principle. So really the 8th principle, the widening the circle, and being good Unitarian Universalists, all of those things are referring to the same thing: caring and connecting, being a part of beloved community. So we know now to look at our society and see the cultural structures of oppression that have been built in through what we sometimes refer to as white supremacy culture. We know that that is not an inclusive, just, equitable, compassionate model. And we know that it's just built right in to all of us. So we're working on learning how to see it, learning how to counteract it, learning how to have the awarenesses and the skills to do things differently, to say, nope, that's really just not good enough. We don't want tiny little circles that exclude people. We really want to open our hearts and our church doors and our society wide so that everyone can experience their full, authentic self and be welcomed as they are, be supported as who they are, and have the same access and opportunity to human flourishing. So that's what we're working on transforming here. It's a big, big task, and it's going to take our entire lifetimes and well beyond. So we know that, but we know also that it's worth doing, that it's this moral imperative to pay attention and to change and to transform ourselves. And thank goodness we do this in community. As I mentioned last week, one of my professors, ethics professor, Dr. Sharon Welch, says, we can't be moral alone. And it's really true. We need the perspectives of other people to help us figure this stuff out. So as we look at our own identities and the identity of Calgary Unitarians, we notice that there's some identities that are missing too. There's a lot of folks that are not a part of our bigger circles, which is why we go out and make relationships out in the beyond part, our Calgary Alliance for the Common Good, our Interfaith Council, all the wonderful relationships that we can build out in our community to help us learn from those perspectives and help us grow and fully develop as moral, ethical beings, people of faith. So we are welcoming and including people right here, right now, and taking a closer look at what identity is, what diversity is, and how diversity and inclusion go together helps us get a handle on how we actually do this. The standard welcome greeting in India is the beautiful Sanskrit word namaste. Many of us are familiar with it. The word itself translates as I bow to you, but it means so much more than that. One of the most common translations is the divine light in me bows to the divine light in you. But lots of other meanings are possible. Some of the common ones are, I honor the place in you where the entire universe dwells. I bow to the place in you that is love, light, and joy. When you and I bow to our true nature, there is only one of us. My soul recognizes your soul. I see you. My humanity honors your humanity. We are one. It doesn't say we are one so long as you're like me and do things my way. But that's what white supremacy culture does to an awful lot of people. It does it to all of us, in fact. It teaches us that there's a right way and a wrong way to be human, that there are some ways that have more power and privilege and others that are marginalized and pushed away and denied. And that simply isn't the way we know that we would like the world to be. No one is immune to the cultural effects of white supremacy. It's in the water we swim in all the time. So we're working on noticing it, reprogramming it, changing our ways. And one of the best ways we can do that is to start where we are. Who am I? Who are you? This is the within part. So what pops into your head when you hear that question? Who are you? Perhaps your name, for starters. But when I think of my own name and say my name to myself, I know that I mean all of me, the entirety of my being, my whole life, everything that's happened to me, all that I've learned, and so on, my whole human journey, myself, my individuality, my personhood, my identity. But this can be very different from what other people think I am, right? No two people ever see us exactly the same way. And with strangers, we often make judgments simply based on the external appearance of people. One of my favorite little funny sayings is, please let me become the person my dog thinks I am. Right? Good aspiration. Onyx loves all y'all. He thinks you're all fabulous. I love you too. Well, I'm willing to bet that most of us have had that experience of being treated badly by people who don't know who we are, who are only looking at a bit or a piece, or making a judgment about something that they see, or projecting something all over us that just isn't us. And it feels really icky. And it can be really, really hurtful. False assumptions, biases, judgments, and the like. It takes a tremendous amount of effort to actually get to know people. And those personal connections and shared experiences are what helps us challenge our biases and assumptions and get to the much, 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 much bigger reality of the whole person on the inside. So we want to give people the benefit of the doubt when we see them and not judge them just based on the few things that we observe. From the Canadian Centre for Diversity and Inclusion, we get these definitions. Diversity is about the individual. It's about the variety of unique dimensions, qualities, and characteristics we all possess. Inclusion is about the collective. It's about creating a culture that strives for equity and embraces, respects, and accepts and values difference. Diversity and inclusion is about capturing the uniqueness of the individual, creating an environment that values and respects individuals for their talents, skills, and abilities to benefit the collective. In other words, diversity and inclusion is about honoring the worth and dignity of every single person for everything that they are. So that's our combination of our within, each person's individuality, among one another. We're going to honor that diversity and that inclusion. Paying attention to the dimensions, qualities, and characteristics that create human diversity can help us understand the complexity and beauty of how we are all different and how we are all related. Understanding diversity helps us comprehend our shared humanity that is a part of the interdependent web. That interdependent web of all existence is another way of talking about inclusion. There's no outside, right? It's all one great big ecosystem. So starting with identity, in our individual journeys of self-exploration, we can create a personal identity map using a tool called a diversity wheel. And here is one example of a nice, colorful diversity wheel. I like pretty pictures. And can you guys make it so that those aren't the same size, that I'm little and the other picture's bigger? Do they have to be side by side? The AV Wizards and their magic tricks. Ha 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 ha. Oh, that's so nice. Thank you. Brilliant. So, there are many, many versions of diversity wheels out there, and as you can tell, you can really just go on and on and on and on, adding items that might be of interest. No two people are going to have a same wheel like this, just as we are all individuals. No two of us have the same identities. Those core identities in the middle tend to be things that are endemic to us, and some of them are by birth, others of them are developmental. They may change as we grow over time. And some of them we simply are what they are. We are how old we are, for instance, and that has an influence on how we view ourselves in the world. So these diversity wheels give us a clue that when we meet a human being, we're not just seeing the color of their skin. Look at that wheel, it's hard to even pick out one little segment. There's an awful lot of them there, and knowing real humans have sort of an infinite number of slices to their pies, right? The wheel gives us a starting point, though, where to begin to think about ourselves and our lives if we're going to make a personal identity map. And we use the term map loosely. I encourage you to try this at home. It's actually a really good exercise in self-expression, working on your positive ego identity, your self-concept, having all of that stuff squared away with yourself in a good relationship with yourself. 1 times 1 is 1, my relationship to me, myself, and I, right? It gives us the grounding to build positive relationships. If we're understanding these things about us, it's easier for us to have empathy and compassion about other people. So they are wonderful creative expressions. And one way to do it then is to put your name in the middle and just start listing things that you consider really important parts of your identity. All over the place. Words, phrases, pictures that you might think of when you think of you. And it may not have all of those other elements in it. It's not about being comprehensive, it's about what really matters to you. And we can see here some examples of what people have made when we've asked people to make identity maps. In fact, you can see in the middle there, one schoolroom teacher asked her children to actually think of themselves as their own little country and draw an actual map of who they are. People use every possible media. You can see Rebecca up there has what's called a starburst idea of just listing all of the things. So, I'm a dog lover, I'm a nature lover, I am a UU minister, I'm all sorts of things. You could go on and on and on, labeling things that are important to you about you, that make you happy to be you. And the things that make us who we are that might not be so pleasant. We have trauma histories, we have families of origin that may or may not have been positive in our lives. So it's a way of really exploring that with yourself, and I encourage it as a personal exercise. It makes beautiful art, it really does. So, what things would you include? When we look at this map, we start to see our outward focus increase a bit, from our inward focus to what are all the aspects of my identity, to taking in our outward focus. And Marilyn Loden and Julie Rosner created this wheel in 1990 and depicted as concentric circles, a way of encouraging us to think about values, beliefs, and dimensions of identity for both people and organizations. So each organization has a personality. Each organization has an identity. Each organization has a way that it expresses itself and interacts with the world around it. So you start with the core self, and then you have these internal aspects, the external aspects, the organizational aspects, and then your big, giant cultural context? What are the big historical events that have shaped your life? What's going on in the world around you? We've all got climate change out there in that big circle that we're staring down, right? So it helps us understand this among and beyond piece that, once again, when we encounter a human being, we're encountering all this in every person we meet. It's very complicated, right? So this comes to us from the Cultural Competence Learning Institute. This is good news. There are so many people studying diversity, equity, and inclusion right now. There's resources galore all over the internet. So it's helpful when we're looking at our own white supremacy culture and our institution to think about how, if we were to make this map about Calgary Unitarians as an organization, what types of things would we fill in these various circles? What aspects of our congregational identity are important to us? And how might that interact then? How might that be welcoming or not welcoming to people who have completely different items in their circles? It starts to build that justice, equity, and compassion model right into us when we're looking at ourselves and everyone we meet this way. When we're thinking about our organization as a part of a larger organism, the organism that is the culture of Calgary. So you can start with yourself again and make your own map of you. What would you put in those circles? Something that's very telling, I've done this before, is what you think a casual observer, if they were to draw a little chart of you, it might only have 3 or 4 things on it, right? It'd be small. It'd be incomplete, and it would probably be wrong, right? Someone might look at me and all they would see is, oh, well, she's short, she's wide, she's white, she speaks English, maybe they'd hear me speak. That'd be about it. They wouldn't know, and it would be a very dull picture, and it would be incorrect. So we think about that in addressing other human beings, that don't forget your diagrams, don't forget your map. We need a map to learn this terrain, right? So now here is where the rubber meets the road when we're talking about widening the circle and our 8th principle. We're developing this sense of ourselves as integral within, among, and beyond. There's no distinction between us and them, the Calgary Unitarians, and the wider world that we're going to save. Nope. It's all one thing. We're all part of it. We're not separate from it. It is us. And we're responsible within it for how we choose to interact and the impact that we have on it. When we look at this is the wheel of power and privilege. Here's the truth about white supremacy culture right here. This shows what happens to our identities when we spread them across the spectrum of power and privilege. This is what happens to people. This is that water we swim in. This is the experiences people have when they go out in the wider world. If you're lucky enough to be in the center, you get to be centered, cisgendered white males who have privilege, who have education. Wow, not a lot of obstacles in your way. The world literally revolves around you. Woohoo! But the farther away we go from the center, the more marginalized these identities become. We think of them as fewer in number, minority. Maybe people don't matter if there's only a few of them. Could that possibly be true? I hope not. Let's not treat people that way, right? So if you find yourself a trans female who happens to identify as black, wow, you're a long way from the center. And you're going to be experiencing an awful lot of marginalization and structural oppression. And those outer circles are where, when we talk about barriers to full inclusion, we're talking about the barriers, the walls that get put up that keep you out of the center. They keep you away. It's literally like there's a force field around this building. And that force field is made of white supremacy culture, and it keeps people out. It keeps people out. And it is harmful. I don't like that. I want to take it down. I'd like to build bridges, not walls, as some of our songs say. So this is a really important diagram to think about, because if you think about what would it look like to draw your own, you realize it's not this nice, symmetrical, pretty thing, but you're going up and down, like, oh, I'm cisgendered, and I'm white, yay, I'm very close to the center. I have a lot of power and privilege in terms of my education, being an American citizen, things like this. And then, but I'm a woman, so that's gonna push me out a little bit over here in that dimension. But, you know, for the most part, but it's gonna be kind of this up and down, back and forth, very dynamic model. And it's the folks for whom almost all of their identities are out there. They're gonna have the biggest impact from all that intersectionality. That's when we talk about intersectionality. If you're Black, and you're female, and you're trans, and you're poor, that's a lot. So keeping that in mind, when we talk about welcome and inclusion and diversity, what we're saying is we don't want there to be an inside and an outside to this thing. We want everybody to be on the inside. We want everyone to have the same access, the same opportunity, the same ability to express and experience and be loved and beloved for their whole selves, for all that they are, for everything that they bring. Why on earth would you ever want to push anybody out of the circle? It's a terrible idea. It diminishes us all. So it's a good way of looking at it. And again, this is not all, this is 12 elements of diversity. As we've talked about, there are a gazillion elements of diversity. These tend to be the ones that pop up because some of them are the very meanest, the very harshest, where people are actually getting killed on a daily basis because of their marginalized identities. So again, when we talk about widening our circles, who we are as people, we're talking about expanding our brains, expanding our hearts, expanding our sense of what it means to be among and beyond with everyone else. We're responsible for each other. We're responsible for how we treat one another. We're responsible for counteracting. We need to be the antidote to this, right? And there's a really good model for that comes to us. It's the Tree of Life model of identity. This particular diagram comes from the Creating Theology Together curriculum from the FOSS Collaborative at Meadville Lombard. And I was one of the pilot people to try this curriculum out. It's extensive, but it's excellent. So if you think of yourself not as a wheel or an artsy diagram of what you might look like on the inside, if you think about each and every one of us like a tree, we have roots, we have a history, we have a past, we have all that came before us, we have our present, and we have our future. So the roots here are all those influences: family, culture, religion, lack of religion. What kind of family of origin did you come from? What was going on? Were there any trauma experiences in your life? You get a compost heap. This is good news, right? Anything that as we grow and develop, we're going to shed some things that don't serve us anymore. We can put them in the compost heap and they'll nurture our continued growth. We have our tree trunk, which is, you know, who am I? What's my role in society? There's that whole big identity map that you've made of yourself is represented in the tree here. What are your fruits in your life? Your kids, your job, your achievements, anything you've made, anything you've worked on. We are all part of the fruit of Unitarian Universalism here at Calgary Unitarians. And then the leaves, we just branch out and we have so much interconnection with the world around us, don't we? And we absolutely know that trees and leaves talk to one another, they communicate. So that's all our feelers and all our communication, all of the sources of influences coming and going from us, including all of our friends and family. And our flowers and our buds, hopes for the future, who are becoming. So if you think of each person as a tree, and then when we get together, we're a forest, we're an ecosystem. And I love what one of the poets and writers, Annie Dillard, said. She says, "I never met any tree that was no tree in particular." And this is true of people too, right? This is absolutely true of people. When we get together, that idea of within, among, and beyond, if you're thinking of a forest, it's easier to see the synthesis. It's easier to see how each and every one of us, how our congregation, all of it is that interconnected web. It's not Calgary Unitarians over here, social justice over there. You have to go out of your way to go find it. Nope. It's who we are. It's what we are. It's how we live. It's how we interact. It's how we together make up the ecosystem that is Calgary. And so by making these tree identity features, imagine, and I would encourage anyone and everyone who wants to, make your tree, draw your tree, make that your artwork. And then you put all the trees up on the wall, and you can see the forest that is Calgary Unitarians, the forest and the trees. I just love this model because it really does help us grasp that within, among, and beyond in a way that I think is useful. We're here in our forest together. We darn well better take care of it and us and everyone in it. Respect the trees, respect the people, respect the place that everyone has in the web of life. Queensborough Community College in New York has a wonderful little diversity and inclusion website. They tell us that diversity means more than just acknowledging or tolerating difference. It's a set of conscious practices that involve understanding and appreciating interdependence of humanity, cultures, and the natural environment, practicing mutual respect for qualities and experiences that are different than our own, understanding that diversity includes not only ways of being, but also ways of knowing, recognizing that personal, cultural, and institutionalized discrimination creates and sustains privileges for some, while creating and sustaining disadvantages for others, and building alliances across differences so that we can work together to eradicate all forms of discrimination. So this diversity includes knowing how to relate to those qualities and conditions that are different from our own, that are present in other people and other groups. How do we relate to one another without that judgment, without that othering, without that criticism? How can we let each other be, live and let live, and support one another? And we notice that these things are fluid, like a living ecosystem, like the forest. It's alive, it's changing, it's growing, it's dynamic. And as we well know from our experience observing climate change, we can have a really big impact on the environment around us. So we want to think about that. We want to think about how we impact the environment here at Calgary Unitarians, here in the wider world. How are we citizens of the earth? What are we doing to be sustainable, vibrant, alive, living for absolutely everybody and everything that is a part of our ecosystem? It would be a tragedy to lose any of it. And this is where we practice our covenanting. And we're going to talk about that this afternoon in our workshop. If you'd like to come, we'd love to have you talk about how do you do this when it's hard? How do you actually get along and relate and build relationship with people when you're really, really different? It's not easy. No matter how big our hearts are, how much we want to, there are some skills and abilities that go along with how to covenant across difference. And we're going to talk a lot about that as we continue this journey of widening our circle. Let's give ourselves a moment. We're going to listen to a wonderful piece of music by Shoshana Jedwab called Where You Go, I Will Go. This is based on a story from the book of Ruth in the Hebrew Scriptures about a woman who went to live with her in-laws, and then her husband died, and her family said, well, aren't you going to go back to your people? And she says, no, you're my people. You're my chosen people. I'm here with you. And this is Ruth's song. Play our meditation music, please.
You go,
my divine. Where you go, I will go, children. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, children. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. Where you go, I will go, ancestors. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, ancestors. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. Where you go, I will go, beloved. Where you go, I will go. For your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine. Your people are my people. Your people are mine. Your people are my people. You're divine, my divine.
Beautiful. And now is the time in our service when we accept our offering. From the words of Kayla Parker, we know that our financial contributions to this congregation come from sacrifice and hard work. We're so grateful for this and committed together to ensure the funds we gather collectively do a greater good for ourselves and our world than they could do alone. May there be an offering to sustain and grow the life of this mission and its congregation. May we give in love and hope. And now we'll hear a message from Joan Lawrence from the Calgary Climate Hub. And we thank Alex Schumacher for introducing us to Joan and the wonderful work. And Calgary Climate Hub is our For Others recipient this month.
Hi, I'm Joan Lawrence, and I'm co-chair of the Calgary Climate Hub. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to you today. The Calgary Climate Hub is a member of the Climate Reality Project Canada, and that's a national organization that was founded by Al Gore to get people to take action on climate at the municipal level. And municipalities are really important for climate action because cities are responsible for about 76% of emissions worldwide. So our mission is to educate and empower Calgarians to become active climate citizens. What does that look like? Well, we have a number of educational programs. So we do in-person workshops and online workshops. And we have a webinar series called The Climate of Change, where we speak to experts from all around the world about how to take action on climate during the pandemic. We also have a program called the Community Climate Conversations, and the Calgary Unitarians actually hosted one of these back in the fall of 2019. And this is where people can come and speak to their friends and their neighbors and people in their community and experts about climate change and really start to think about what they can do themselves with their community. And we're really excited this year because now we are partnering with the Arusha Center to offer ongoing coaching and support for people who want to take on a specific project within their community. The funding that you provide today is going to really help sustain that project and help create a network of climate-friendly communities all across Calgary. The other thing that we do is we're a member of the Calgary Alliance for the Common Good, just like the Calgary Unitarians. And as part of that, we are participating in the Climate Organizer Project. So we are hiring a climate organizer, and her name is Renee Kirby. And her role is going to be gathering Calgarians from a variety of walks of life to look at all aspects of climate change, because climate change is not just a emissions problem, and it's not just an environmental problem. It's a social problem, it's an economic problem, it's an employment problem, it's a food security problem. It's really what we call a wicked problem. So Renee's role is going to be to bring people together, and we'll look at what the solutions are to cover all of those different areas within the Calgary context, and then we'll advocate for a set of solutions together. And that brings us to the empowerment part of our mission. Empowering people to really advocate for meaningful change. So part of that is to create relationships with our city councillors and other decision makers and take on campaigns together. And we've worked with the Calgary Unitarians on a number of campaigns in the past. We partnered together on the Green Line and on getting NMAX to declare net zero and the municipal election, and also to get council to declare a net zero target. Right now we're focused on the revisions to the climate strategy, and that's going to come before committee at the end of April and to council in June. And we're planning a day of action on April 21st, which is where we're going to try and talk to as many city councillors as we can all in one day. And I really encourage you to sign up for that and speak to your city councillor. If you're wanting a little bit of training, we're offering some training on April 12th, but don't feel that you have to come to the training. If you can't make that, sign up and come and talk to your councillor anyway, because the really important thing is to let them know that people care about climate. The other thing is on April 25th, we're going to be having our AGM, and our keynote speaker this year is going to be Latasha Kaffrobe. And she's a very important voice around Indigenous water action in southern Alberta. And it's going to be a great opportunity to hear from her about what's going on for Indigenous people and water rights. You can find out more about that event and all of our events and our other work on our website, which is calgaryclimatehub.ca. Thank you so much again for letting me come and speak to you today. It's really through partnerships like this that we're going to be able to restore our relationship with Mother Earth. Thanks very much.
If you live somewhere besides Ward 7, they have lots of people from Ward 7 going to City Council, but other wards are not as well represented. So on that day of action, to go and speak to your representatives is really important. It's a lot of fun to go and do that together. It's very empowering. And so if you're a person who has the luxury of a day of the week when you can go and do that, I encourage you to try it. It's awesome. So that's exciting news. We give these gifts freely. We receive these gifts gratefully. We dedicate these gifts to the work of our congregation, serving human wholeness, caring for our planet, upholding religious freedom, welcoming the stranger, and loving one another. We have our offering slide, gives us some tips on the many ways we have to share our generosity. And we'll sing our sweet short song, From You I Receive.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and by this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and by this we live.
You want to join us for coffee on Zoom? We have a coffee chat that will link that'll appear in your browser there, or in your chat, I apologize. And then in here, we can just take that short walk over to Wickenden and enjoy some coffee and cookies and good conversation and spend some time together this morning. From Kate Lohr, these words of wisdom. She says, "There's a place of wisdom within you. There's a place of wisdom within me. May our coming together provide us with an enlarged sacred center and an ever-increasing ability to see the sacredness in all. Our service is ended. Now the real service begins. Go in peace. Go making peace. And we do have a video of one of my favorite songs from Jason Shelton, Answering the Call of Love. And we can go ahead and put that on and think of it as traveling music. The music will accompany us into Wickenden.